After the car accident, I was rushed to the hospital. Sarah showed up just long enough to sign the consent forms, then left. She claimed there was a family emergency, leaving me alone with a broken leg. When I got out of surgery, the first thing I saw was a Facebook post from her stepbrother. The caption read, "Just landed and she was the first person I saw." I guess that's what family is all about. The photo was of Sarah, looking beautiful as she picked him up from the airport, with the location tagged as Philadelphia. He even shared it directly to our family group chat, a clear challenge to me, her actual boyfriend. I laughed and replied graciously, "That's nothing. Becoming family by marriage is what makes you real family." I don't have any family of my own. For 7 years, it was just me and Sarah hustling in New York City. When she rushed in to sign my surgical consent form, a wave of warmth washed over me, making me feel like I finally had family to count on. But a second later, she tossed out a quick, "Something came up at home," and hurried away. She didn't even spare me a second glance or ask about my injuries. Before I could get a word out, she had already vanished down the noisy, crowded hospital hallway. After surgery, I picked up my phone to let her know I was okay, but my screen lit up with that post from Liam in the family group chat. It was the picture of Sarah holding a huge bouquet of yellow lilies, smiling and waving at the airport arrivals gate, along with his caption, "Just landed and she was the first person I saw." I guess that's what family is all about. I instinctively tried to shift my right leg, the one that was broken and wrapped in a heavy cast. The anesthesia was wearing off, and a sharp pain shot through it. I called Sarah, and we immediately started fighting. She was incredibly impatient, shooting back just like she always did in our arguments. "Liam is my brother. Can you please stop being so ridiculously jealous? It was a minor accident. Can't you be a man and tough it out for once?" I could hear Liam laughing in the background. "Sarah, we're all having dinner together. Stop taking calls from outsiders." Before I could even say, "He's not even related to you by blood," Sarah coldly hung up. A dull ache settled in my chest, and I blocked Sarah's number right then and there. Not wanting to bother my friends, I hired a nurse's aide. I spent the next few weeks in a hospital, awkwardly enduring the curious whispers from the other patients in my shared room. The day before my discharge, a message came through from a mutual friend, sent on Sarah's behalf. "Daniel, can I come pick you up tomorrow?" It was her way of making peace. In the 10 years we'd been together, this was always Sarah's pattern. She would hurt me recklessly during an argument, then act as if nothing happened and try to win me over again. I always indulged her, treating her like a kid I needed to spoil, never holding a grudge or bringing up the past. Because of that, she never had to care whether I was actually getting hurt by her repeated actions. She knew I would always forgive her with a smile, always let it go. But this time, I was completely and utterly disappointed. I had thought we would build a home together, and I desperately clung to any small moment of affection she showed me. But in the end, it was clear that to her, I was just an outsider. I unblocked Sarah's number and sent a simple reply with my discharge time and room number. For once, Sarah replied instantly. "I'll be there on time tomorrow to get you. Hugs and kisses," she wrote. "And I'll bring you some homemade chicken soup. Okay?" In the past, I would have been touched by her quick response and would have already been online, ordering a gift to celebrate us making up. This time, however, I had no interest in replying. I just turned off my phone and went to sleep. My discharge was scheduled for 10 in the morning. I sat on the edge of my hospital bed and waited. By the time it was past noon, there was still no sign of Sarah. The nurse on her round saw me and looked surprised. "Mr. Anderson, I thought you were being discharged today." I forced a smile, just waiting for a friend to pick me up. Unable to bear the gossipy stares from the other patients any longer, I tried calling Sarah. The call went to voicemail. I waited until well past 3 in the afternoon, but Sarah never showed. No texts, and her phone still wouldn't connect. A nurse approached me apologetically. "I'm sorry, Mr. Anderson, but we have a new patient who needs this bed." I gave a wry smile. "My apologies, I'm leaving now." I had just managed to get to the hospital entrance on my crutches when Sarah came running in. "I'm so sorry, honey. I had to drive Liam to an interview this morning. I just rushed back from Philadelphia." I cut her off with a soft laugh. "It's fine." Sarah froze for a second. Then her brow furrowed with a hint of annoyance. "You're angry. You're blaming me for being late, aren't you?" "Liam and I were just—" "I'm not angry," I said, subtly moving away as she reached for my arm. "Let's just go home. I'm tired." "Daniel," she said, planting herself in front of me and staring at me with displeasure. "When did you learn to be so passive-aggressive? You were never like this before." "Like what?" I met her gaze with a calm smile. "Is it wrong for me to be understanding?" Sarah looked a little flustered. Never mind. Let's just go home. Using my crutches for support, I slowly settled into the back seat. Sarah turned to glare at me, her face showing her annoyance. I spoke first. More legroom back here. She pursed her lips, but didn't argue. I guess waiting for her for so long had exhausted me, because I leaned against the window and drifted off to sleep. I didn't wake up until the sound of Sarah's phone ringing filled the car. Sarah, I got the job. Sarah was driving and had put the call on speaker. Liam's triumphant voice boomed through the car. She guiltily fumbled to turn the volume down, darting a glance at me in the rearview mirror. Seeing my eyes were still closed, she seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. I'm just picking Daniel up from the hospital, she said. Guess where I am? Liam laughed, and the sound of rushing wind on his end grew louder and more jarring. The color drained from Sarah's face. She slammed on the brakes, so hard I was nearly thrown from my seat. She paid me no mind, shouting into the phone, Liam, are you street racing again? Have you forgotten you just got out of treatment? Do you have a death wish? Where are you right now? You know where, Liam said breezily, then hung up with a laugh. Sarah was about to whip the car around when her eyes met mine in the rearview mirror. It was only then that she seemed to remember I was in the back. Honey, she began, looking conflicted. I knew exactly what was coming next. She was going to say that Liam racing his car was far more dangerous. That compared to me, already discharged from the hospital, he needed her more. Before she could even invent an excuse, I made it easy for her and tapped on the door. You could just let me out here. I'll just grab an Uber home. Sarah stared at me, searching my eyes for any sign of jealousy, but her fingers betrayed her and unlocked the doors. I smiled. The electronic chime of the lock sounded like a final bell tolling in my heart. I dragged my casted leg out of the car. Without a moment's hesitation, she spun the car around and sped off in the direction of Philadelphia. She didn't even seem to notice that she'd dropped me on a quiet side street where you could rarely ever catch a cab. I stood by the side of the road on my crutches, waiting for a ride when my phone rang. It was Greg. Hey, the company's picking a senior programmer for a training program in the States, and I put your name forward. Greg was a VP at my company and my senior from college. For the past 2 years, he'd recommended me for every overseas opportunity. But I could never bring myself to leave Sarah, always making excuses about not being suited for life abroad. Before I could even respond, Greg cut me off. Don't you dare tell me you can't leave your girlfriend. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, man. It's not like you're moving to Mars. If you guys can't handle 1 year of long distance, then she's not the one for you anyway. I can introduce you to someone way better. I couldn't help but laugh. Sarah and I met in high school and started dating our freshman year. We were together through 3 years of high school, for years of college, and for 3 years after graduation. In all that time, for 10 years, I had almost never been away from her. The day we graduated from college, Sarah went with me to visit my parents' graves. I remember whispering a prayer. I want to be with Sarah forever. I want to have a family. At that moment, Sarah squeezed my hand tightly and promised, Daniel, I am your family. That was until her mother remarried, and her stepbrother, Liam, entered our lives. I had loved her for 10 years. Yet, at my most vulnerable, she left me in a hospital, abandoned me on an empty street. All my effort and all my hopes felt so worthless. I cut to the chase. When would I leave? Greg sounded ecstatic. Attaboy, Daniel, you've finally seen the light. If you nail this, your career is going to skyrocket. Send me your resume right now, and I'll forward it to the head office in the States. I looked up at the darkening sky. Still no sign of a cab. I let out a dry laugh. Hey, Greg, could you actually do me a favor and come pick me up first? I'm having a little trouble getting around. Greg drove me home, complaining about Sarah the entire way. As he was leaving, he looked at me seriously and said, Dude, you have to stop loving her. She's not worth it. I smiled and nodded. I know. From the moment she started so blatantly prioritizing Liam, I knew she wasn't worth it. But the thought of actually leaving her still made my throat tighten with a bitter ache. This opportunity in the States felt like a sign, a chance I had to take. It was my chance to finally break away from Sarah for good. I spent some time packing my bags, then tried to study some materials for the trip. It wasn't long before I started nodding off, eventually falling asleep right there at my desk. In my sleep, I thought I heard someone sigh as a blanket was draped over my shoulders. I cracked my eyes open and saw Sarah. Her normally pristine dress was wrinkled, and she was covered in the thick smell of cigarette smoke. I coughed and instinctively pushed her away. You stink, I mumbled. I've always been sensitive to the smell of smoke. Sarah sometimes had to go to dinners with clients, but if she ever came home smelling like an ashtray, she would always shower right away before getting anywhere near me. But Liam, with his psychological issues, was a heavy smoker. She must have picked up the stench from being with him. Sarah seemed annoyed by my rejection and leaned in, wrapping her arms around my neck. "Honey, don't be mad," she whispered, her soft lips pressing against my neck as the acrid smoke smell filled my senses. I was just worried something would happen to Liam, and then my mom would blame me for it. I frowned and struggled to push her off, accidentally knocking my injured leg against the desk. I hissed in pain. "Stop it, Sarah." I didn't want to hear about Liam. Every time she brought him up, it felt like a sharp, twisting pain in my chest. "Oh my God, Daniel, I'm so sorry. Does it still hurt?" For a second, Sarah looked genuinely panicked, standing there like a guilty child, watching helplessly as I rubbed my leg. I shook my head. "I'm not angry. I just hate the smell of smoke." "Okay, I'll go take a shower then." "I'm sorry, honey." Sarah studied my face, and only when she seemed convinced I wasn't mad did she relax and head for the bathroom. On her way, she noticed the suitcases on the floor. "Why are you packing all of a sudden?" she asked. "Going on a business trip?" "No," I said. "I think I should move out." Sarah stopped dead in her tracks. "What are you talking about?" "We need some space," I said. "We need to think things through." She turned to glare at me, her voice filled with irritation. "Stop making a scene, Daniel. I haven't slept all night, and I'm exhausted. I thought you said you weren't angry." I kept my voice as level as I could. "Am I the one who kept you up all night? I'm not making a scene, and I'm not angry. Sarah, I'm being completely serious." Sarah was speechless. She stared at me, stunned, as if she were looking at a stranger. After a long moment, she let out a sharp, angry laugh. "Fine, Daniel. You're really something else." Then she turned and slammed the door behind her. I knew what she was really angry about. She had probably never imagined a day would come when I would be the one to suggest taking a break, let alone leaving. She knew exactly how much of my life and love I had invested in her. That knowledge was the leverage she used to hurt me whenever she wanted. But I didn't care what she thought anymore. This day was always going to come, I told myself quietly, rubbing my tired eyes. A faint light was beginning to filter through the window, but I still felt exhausted, so I went back to the bedroom to sleep. The next time I woke up, it was already afternoon. I opened my bedroom door with my crutches and was shocked to find Sarah and Liam sitting in the living room. "Daniel, you're awake," Liam said, standing up and taking a few steps toward me. "Hey man, I'm really sorry. I came over specifically to apologize. It was all my fault. I was just so excited about getting the job that I had to go for a drive, which made Sarah worry and forced her to leave you on the side of the road. We really should have visited you in the hospital." I acted as if I hadn't heard a word, limping right past him to the refrigerator to get a glass of water. "Daniel, Liam came all this way to apologize to you," Sarah said, her voice sharp. "He apologized," I said, turning to look at her with a cool gaze. "So that means I have to accept it?" Even though I'd tried to prepare myself, her blatant defense of him still stung. Did I ask him to apologize? Or more to the point, did I ever say either of you did anything wrong to me? I struggled to keep my voice steady, trying to hide the bitterness I felt. Liam sighed, putting on a show of being the bigger person. "I'm sorry, Daniel. It's all my fault. As her brother, I could be a little reckless." It was laughable. His tone was meant to sound sincere, but he couldn't hide the look of triumph in his eyes. I cut him off. "Liam, I have never once said a bad word about you, and I have never blamed you for anything. A grown man shouldn't be playing these kind of petty games." The color drained from Liam's face, and he was left speechless. Sarah stepped in front of Liam, shielding him. "Daniel, that's way out of line." There was a clear note of panic in her voice. It was the first time I had ever called Liam out so directly in front of her. My reaction was clearly something she couldn't control. Out of line? Is it more out of line than leaving your boyfriend in the hospital right after a car accident? Honestly, I was just tired of it all. "Sarah, I think you've already made your choice," I said. "Let's break up." Sarah froze, then let out a cold laugh. "Daniel, are you trying to threaten me? Over what, a few stupid incidents? I've told you a million times. Liam is just my brother. Why are you so insanely jealous?" I just felt exhausted. A bitter smile touched my lips. "You're right. He's family, and I'm just some unimportant outsider." I looked at her, my eyes filled with a profound sense of disappointment. "Sarah, I'm serious. Let's break up. I'm just so tired." Sarah stared at me, stunned. Something in my expression seemed to make it hard for her to breathe, as if her heart were being squeezed. "Sarah, Daniel's really upset," Liam said, taking her wrist and still trying to fan the flames. "Maybe you two should just take a break." Sarah violently shook off Liam's hand and strode over to me, grabbing my wrist. "Break up? I don't agree," she declared, holding onto me tightly and forcing herself into my arms. "Daniel, if you need space, I'll give you space. But we are not breaking up. That's not an option. Your leg still isn't healed, so I'll move out for a little while. But if you need a ride to the office, just call me, okay?" I sighed. "What's the point, Sarah?" "Daniel, I am not breaking up with you," she repeated, her voice firm and stubborn. It reminded me of the day I first asked her out in freshman year. Back then, I was the quiet, straight-A student all the teachers loved, but I did something completely out of character for her. I ran to the girls' dorm late one night and shouted her name under her window. She poked her head out, frantically waving for me to be quiet, terrified I'd get caught by the campus patrol. But like some idiot in a movie, I climbed the trellis up to her second-floor window and handed her a box of chocolates. "Sarah, I really like you," I said. Sarah's face turned bright red as her roommates cheered and teased her. My parents had passed away when I was young, so I was always busy working part-time to support myself, which made me independent but also a bit of a loner. Sarah was the first person who ever made an effort to get close to me. She was so bright and confident, like a little ray of sunshine, and she always looked out for me. She'd bring me cold water and sunscreen after gym class. She'd playfully beg me for extra help with physics before finals, and she'd drag me on a trip to Philadelphia during winter break. "Will you be my girlfriend?" I asked her, my heart pounding. She covered her blushing cheeks and nodded. Just like that, 10 years had gone by. I couldn't argue with her, so I let the topic of breaking up go for now. I figured since I was leaving for the States soon, it would happen one way or another. She seemed relieved, quickly packed a few things, then took my phone and changed her contact settings to give her priority notifications. "If you need to go to the office or anywhere else, you have to call me. Don't try to tough it out," she insisted. I thought about telling her that Greg had already volunteered to drive me around while I was on crutches, but a petty part of me decided to keep quiet. For the next few days, right on schedule, Sarah would text me in the morning and evening, asking if I needed a ride to or from work. In the past, I would have jumped at the chance, playfully taking advantage of her rare offer to dote on me. Sarah's sales job kept her incredibly busy after college, so I bought her a car to make her life easier while I just took the packed subway every day. On the rare occasion I worked late and couldn't find a cab, I'd call and ask if she could pick me up. Her response was always the same. "Daniel, you're a grown man. Can't you just get an Uber? I've had a long day and I'm exhausted. All you do is sit at a desk and type. You have no idea how tiring it is to be out in the field all day." Hearing the weariness in her voice always made me feel for her, and I'd make a point to bring home her favorite late-night snack. A snack she almost never touched. She'd say she was too tired from work, that I got home too late, that this wasn't what a home was supposed to feel like. Because of those words, I started turning down almost all overtime, effectively pausing my own career growth. But the truth was, one phone call from Liam was all it took for her to drive all the way to Philadelphia to take him to his therapist or to cook him his favorite meal. She never told me, and she must have thought I never knew. I ignored her for a few days, and finally, Sarah couldn't stand it anymore and called me. "No thanks," I said. "Greg gives me a ride since it's on his way." There was a pause on her end, then she switched to a sweet, coaxing voice. "How about we get dinner after work? I want to try that new Thai place near your office. I have dietary restrictions right now." "Well, what do you feel like eating? I'll go with you. I have to go out of town for work tonight." A long silence followed, and then a small, choked voice on the other end said, "Okay." When I got home that night, a small pot of homemade chicken soup was sitting on the dining table. It was on a warmer, and the rich, fragrant broth was still bubbling gently. Beside it was a note in her elegant handwriting. "I know you don't want to see me right now. Thanks for working so hard. Here's the soup I promised I'd make for you." I smirked, crumpled the note in my fist, and tossed it into the trash can. I didn't touch the soup. The next day, I brought it to the office and shared it with my coworkers. "Wow, your girlfriend is an amazing cook. This soup is incredible," one of them said. I just smiled. Sarah was a great cook. It had just been a very long time since she'd made anything specifically for me. The soup she had promised to bring me from the hospital had arrived far too late to mean anything anymore. My department got slammed with a huge, urgent project, and I worked overtime for days, not even going home. The day we finally delivered, Sarah called me again. She was sobbing, her words slurring together as if she were drunk. Daniel, why won't you talk to me? Say something, Daniel. Are you still mad at me? I had no desire to argue with a drunk person, so I just gave her a non-committal answer. I've just been really busy with work. I'll come find you, okay? I heard a thumping sound, like her hitting the steering wheel, followed by the distinct click of a seatbelt. Terrified she was about to drive drunk, I quickly tried to stop her. Don't, Sarah. There's no need. Why not? Why don't you need me? How long are you going to keep pushing me away? Haven't you had enough space yet? What else do you want from me? She screamed, venting all her frustration. I just listened quietly until her voice trailed off. Sarah, just call an Uber. Please be safe. With that, I hung up. About 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a notification. It was another post from Liam, shared to the family group chat. The caption read, "I'll always be there for you when you're at your most vulnerable." The photo was of Sarah, completely drunk and incoherent, leaning intimately against Liam. In the past, every time Liam posted something provocative like this, I would have immediately called Sarah to demand an explanation, which would have led to a huge fight. She would have accused me of being petty, of being jealous of her brother, of being disrespectful. This time, I simply replied in the group chat, "Congratulations." Then I left the group for good, a group that was really just filled with her and Liam's friends anyway. I got home, and just as I was getting into bed, I heard a commotion at the front door. There was a loud thud, like something heavy hitting the floor, followed by the low murmur of male and female voices. I opened my bedroom door to see what was going on. Sarah and Liam were in a heap on the floor by the entrance. Sarah was so drunk that she had collapsed, half on top of him. Liam was smiling gently as he helped her to her feet. "Need a hand?" I asked coolly, after watching their little drama play out for a moment. Liam jumped, his expression changing in an instant. Sarah looked up, saw me, and immediately started struggling to her feet, pushing Liam away as she staggered upright. "Daniel, I'm home," she slurred. "Honey, please don't get the wrong idea. I'm just really drunk." She was desperate to explain, the shock of seeing me seeming to sober her up in an instant. My voice was flat. "It's fine. You can sleep in the guest room. My leg is still bad, so I can't really help you." Sarah stumbled towards me, reaching for my wrist. "Please, don't get the wrong idea." I was going to call an Uber, but Liam happened to be at the same party. I sidestepped her hand. "I know. You don't have to explain." A hurt expression crossed her face. She stared into my eyes, searching for any sign that I was secretly fuming. There was nothing there for her to find. "Really? You really don't mind?" She pressed, almost as if she wanted to force me to admit that I was upset. I almost laughed. "He just brought you home. It's not a big deal. I'm exhausted. You should get some rest." Sarah stared at me, dumbfounded. As I started to close my bedroom door, she rushed over and tried to bury herself in my arms. "I feel so sick, Daniel. You always used to make me tea when I drank too much. Could you?" "I'm tired, Sarah," I said, cutting off her childish plea. My eyes shifted to Liam, who was still standing by the door, looking sullen. "Let your brother make it for you." Liam's eyes lit up at that. He quickly walked over and put an arm around Sarah's shoulders. "I'll make it for you, Sarah," he said softly. "Daniel's tired. He's in no mood to take care of you. Don't worry, Daniel. I know what she likes. I'll take good care of her for you." For some reason, that seemed to set Sarah off. She violently shoved Liam's hand away. "You think you know me so well? How long have you even known me? And why wouldn't Daniel be in the mood to take care of me?" It was past 2 in the morning, and their bickering was giving me a headache. For the first time, I snapped at her. "I'm not in the mood to take care of you, Sarah. I told you, I'm tired. Is there anything else?" With that, I closed my bedroom door and locked it. Through the door, I could hear Sarah's frantic pounding and crying, mixed with Liam's soft, coaxing voice. I put in my earplugs, pulled the covers over my head, and went to sleep. The next morning, I found Sarah curled up asleep on our small sofa. I had no idea how Liam had ended up in the guest room. She was a light sleeper, and the sound of my crutches passing by was enough to wake her. "Good morning, honey," she said, her eyes still heavy with sleep. She propped herself up on her elbows, tilting her head up as if expecting a morning kiss. I pretended not to notice. "Morning," I said, and went to the kitchen to make breakfast. Sarah quickly joined me, squeezing into the tiny kitchen and trying to help. "Honey, about us," she started. "Good morning," Liam said, emerging from the guest room as if on cue, cutting her off. "Did you sleep well, Sarah?" "MHM," Sarah mumbled. Her eyes flickered between me and Liam, and I couldn't tell what she was thinking. Breakfast was simple, just some bagels and orange juice. The truth is, Sarah and I never really had the same taste in food, especially breakfast. She couldn't handle anything heavy in the morning, preferring things like artisanal bread and yogurt. I used to stand in long lines at bakeries just to get her favorite limited edition pastries. I always found them too sweet, but I enjoyed the feeling of taking care of her, of creating that family-like atmosphere. So I pretend to like them too. After we separated, I finally started eating what I actually wanted, picking up bagels the night before. Liam poured Sarah a glass of juice, then picked out a cinnamon raisin bagel and handed it to her. Here, Sarah, have this one. Daniel, don't you know she prefers pastries for breakfast? You shouldn't buy bagels next time. She can't eat anything so heavy in the morning. I ignored him and kept eating my own bagel. Daniel, here's some juice, Sarah said, handing me the glass Liam had poured for her. I saw Liam's face darken out of the corner of my eye, and feeling that same petty impulse, I smoothly took the glass from her and took a sip. Sarah seemed to relax, her voice becoming much lighter. Honey, let's just have this for breakfast from now on. I'm getting tired of those pastries anyway. Liam had never been dismissed by her like that, especially not in front of me. He was always the one she favored. I just smiled. You don't have to force yourself. What Sarah liked to eat, or what she was tired of, had nothing to do with me anymore. From now on, I was just going to focus on taking care of myself. Liam pouted, picked up a bagel, and took a bite. He chewed for a moment, then swallowed with a look of disgust. Daniel, when did you buy these? They taste kind of stale. I think they might have gone bad. As he spoke, he tossed the half-eaten bagel back onto the plate. You should really eat better food, Daniel. There's no need to be so cheap. Shut up, Sarah snapped, cutting him off. Liam froze, completely shocked. Sarah, if you don't like it, you can leave, Sarah said, frowning and glaring at him with clear impatience. Sarah, is that any way to talk to your brother? Liam's expression soured. You were short with me yesterday, and now you're telling me to get out? Have you forgotten that I came back to this country just for you? And you seem to have forgotten that you're just my brother, Sarah retorted coldly. If she had ever defended me like that in the past, putting him in his place, I would have been ecstatic. Now I just found the whole situation pathetic. Sarah, thinking I was still just sulking, turned to me with a sweet, apologetic smile. Liam, however, seemed to think we were putting on a show for his benefit. He slammed his hand on the table, shot up from his chair, and stormed out of the apartment. The rest of the breakfast was tasteless. I stood up to clear the table, but Sarah quickly took the plates from me. I'll do it, she said. Honey, Liam has always had his issues. Please don't take what he says to heart. It doesn't matter, I said, cutting her off and turning to leave. I'd only taken 2 steps before she wrapped her arms around me from behind, her body warm against my back. In the last few years, she had rarely hugged me like this outside of the bedroom. Her soft lips pressed against the back of my neck, her warm breath on my skin. I used to live for these small moments of affection. Honey, please don't be mad at me anymore. I really know I was wrong, she whispered. We've been together for 10 years. Let's get married, okay? You've always said you wanted a family. I gave a tired smile. You need to calm down, Sarah. Daniel, she said, her voice a low, pleading whisper, refusing to let go. You hate my relationship with Liam, don't you? I promise I will never, ever leave you for him again. From now on, my life will only be about you. I'll quit my job, okay? I'll cook all your favorite meals and wait for you to come home from work. We can go hiking on the weekends, take trips to the countryside. You even promised we'd go check out all those new coffee shops. I haven't wanted to go to a coffee shop in a long time, Sarah, I said with a sigh. I was diagnosed with a caffeine allergy last year. Her whole body shuddered, and her arms tightened around me as she mumbled. I'm so sorry, it's all my fault. It's all my fault. Of course it's your fault, I said, my voice clear and steady. Sarah, you have always known exactly what you were doing wrong, and you've always known that I wasn't the one being unreasonable. You've been taking my love for you for granted this whole time, haven't you? I lower my head, my voice cracking as I try to hold back a sob. Let's just break up. Let's end this amicably and give each other that last bit of dignity. I'm not breaking up with you. I don't agree, she repeated over and over, her voice filled with bewilderment. Maybe until I said the words again, she truly believed she could win me back, that I was just throwing a tantrum or trying to manipulate her. I didn't want to drag this out any longer. I'm going to start a new life, I said, a life that doesn't involve you. For 10 years, Sarah had been with me through my darkest times. After losing my parents, She was the closest thing to family I had ever known. I truly believed we would be together forever, that we would become a real family. But when she started so openly favoring someone else, I began to doubt myself. Was I not good enough? Was I not worthy of her love? Why was I the only one fighting so hard to keep our relationship alive? If it was this difficult, maybe it was better to just let it go. Daniel, she started, but was cut off by the loud buzzing of her phone on the table. She had to stop trying to plead with me. She glanced at the caller ID and quickly answered. Sarah, what did you say to Liam this time? It was her mother's voice, frantic. He's having another episode. He's locked himself in his room, and he's hurting himself. Sarah hesitated, glancing at me. She was from a blended family, and to keep the peace, her mother had always insisted she cater to Liam's every whim because of his severe depression. It had only made him more entitled and reckless. I just smiled. Go on. Sarah grabbed her jacket and headed for the door, but she paused and looked back at me. Daniel, just give me some time. Give her time. I had already given her more than enough. Sarah didn't come back after that. I heard from a mutual friend that she'd had a massive fight with her mother, so bad that it triggered her mom's asthma. Liam had another breakdown and was readmitted to a psychiatric facility. She was completely overwhelmed, barely even making it into her own office. A friend asked if I wanted to go with them to visit, but I politely declined. My departure date for the States was approaching. I packed up everything that was mine, erasing any trace that I had ever lived in that small apartment. The apartment I once thought would be our forever home. The day before my flight, Sarah showed up at my office building. I had just gotten my cast off and was excited about starting a new life. I was in a genuinely good mood. Seeing her there so unexpectedly made me freeze. My first instinct was to turn and slip out the back entrance, but she had already seen me. Daniel, she called out. I sighed, and under the curious stares of my coworkers leaving for the day, reluctantly walked over to her. What do you want, Sarah? She pulled out a pair of wedding rings, simple bands with tiny inset diamonds. Daniel, I love you. Marry me. My coworkers, oblivious to our history, started whistling and cheering. A woman proposing was definitely a rare sight. I stared at the rings she was holding out, and suddenly I started to laugh. Sarah, I said, do you remember that trip we took abroad after we graduated from college? At first, she looked confused, but then a flicker of recognition crossed her face, and her expression soured. The wedding rings for us weren't supposed to be these. The year we graduated was our first time traveling overseas together. In a jewelry shop in the Dubai airport, Sarah had stared, completely mesmerized, at a wedding band covered in tiny pink diamonds. You like that one? I had asked, tapping on the glass. The diamonds are small. It's not that expensive. I can get it for you. She shook her head, linking her arm through mine. No. In the future, when you propose to me, use this one, okay? Oh, so you want to marry me, do you? I teased, taking a picture of the ring with my phone. If I use this ring, you have to promise you'll say yes. I promise, she'd said. I took a step back from her. It's too late, Sarah. You have to know it's too late for all of this. She lunged forward and grabbed my wrist, her eyes red-rimmed and her voice raspy. Please, Daniel, just give me one more chance. I'm begging you. Marry me. It was only then that I really looked at her and saw how much weight she'd lost. Her cheeks were hollowed out, and her eyes were shadowed with exhaustion. She, who had always been so meticulous about her appearance. We already broke up, Sarah, I said, pulling my hand free and shaking my head. I'm leaving for the States tomorrow. The light in her eyes instantly died. Why? You never told me. Because it has nothing to do with you anymore. Sarah covered her face with her hands. Her shoulders began to shake, and she finally broke down, sobbing. I reached out and gently ruffled her hair. Sarah, let's just say a proper goodbye. The next day, Sarah came to the airport to see me off. She was silent the entire time, just quietly staying by my side as I checked in and dropped off my luggage. Just as I was about to walk through security, she finally called out to me. Daniel, I can wait for you. Will you please give me another chance? I turned to look at her, a small smile on my face as I shook my head. I gestured towards my gate. I'm moving forward now, Sarah. She said something else as I walked away, but I couldn't quite hear it. It didn't matter anymore. You have to keep moving forward in life. No one can stay in the same place forever. Before I knew it, a year had passed. Life in the States was hectic, and one day I realized with a jolt that I hadn't thought about Sarah or any of that past drama in a very long time. The day I flew back home, Greg was at the airport to meet me. For a moment, through the crowd, I thought I saw a familiar figure. She took a few quick steps towards me, then stopped abruptly. She stood there, frozen for a moment before backing away and melting back into the crowd. I heard she and Liam were getting engaged soon. Seeing me staring off into the distance, Greg laughed and clapped me on the shoulder. "Look at you, man. Go to the States for a year and come back with a new girlfriend in tow." Just then, a pair of warm hands slipped into the crook of my arm, and a smiling face pressed against my shoulder. I looked down at the lovely girl beside me and smiled a little shyly. "We're still in the trial phase, Greg." She gave me a playful wink, then took my hand in hers, lacing our fingers together. "Didn't I already promise you? Now that we're back, it's official." She squeezed my hand, her eyes meeting mine as a warm, gentle smile spread across her face. "You silly goose. I love you." I smiled back. "I love you too."